your experience will suck in a multi-billion-dollar building. I can't put it any plainer than that because buildings don't win customer service awards. People do.
That was Mario Rodriguez, Executive Director and CEO of the Indianapolis Airport Authority, talking about how he and his amazing leadership team work to elevate Indiana's business community and economic impact. And this is IBJ's The Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. Mario, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Angela.
Welcome to the Freedom Forum, and thank you so much for agreeing to be our first guest in 2026. I'm so looking forward to this, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation to learn more about you and your illustrious career in aviation leadership. However, before we get started, will you please tell our listeners a bit about you, your educational and professional background, and any other factors that have led to you becoming the executive director and chief executive officer or CEO of the best airport in North America for the last 13 or 14 years in a row, the Indianapolis Airport Authority.
Okay, let's step back a minute on the airport. We don't have the best airport. We have the best staff in the entire United States.
Wow.
That makes it the best airport.
Okay.
Now, really, it's a cultural thing. You know, the airport is just an inanimate object, right? It's a nice building. Don't get me wrong. But what makes it go is everybody that puts their heart and soul into it. And we have an exceptional team. And I've been doing this for, I hate to say for how long, but 38 years, almost 40 years. And I could tell you that they are exceptional in what they do. And they put their hearts into it, and they really, really believe in the higher purpose of serving you and all our community and making our community better. So really, the whole airport, the purpose of our existence is to make all your lives better. So
Nice.
But let me, a little bit about myself. I'm the product of immigrants. My parents were two Cuban immigrants. My mom was brilliant, by the way. She was brilliant, and that'll take a whole different sort of podcast because much like you, she was an attorney. She studied with Fidel Castro, and she made part of the first government in Cuba. So it ended up sideways, and she ended up in New York meeting my dad, and here I am. But one of the interesting parts about my life, which I thought was a negative when I was growing up, obviously, I grew up poor. It's been such an incredible thing to have that sort of perspective in my life, all through my life. And I worked hard. I studied hard. I put my heart and soul into really developing myself, trying to do something really good and giving back. And I got a scholarship to the University of Miami. And by the way, I get to cheer both teams, IU and the U, right? The University of Miami. So whoever wins, I'll be very happy. I'm probably one of the few people that could tell you that.
Right.
And, after graduation, I got to do marvelous things like work at the Fort Lauderdale Airport, design part of the terminal. I got the privilege of designing part of the Hong Kong airport. I lived in Kuwait for a little bit. I lived in Hong Kong. I lived in Latin America for a little bit. I got to live in one of the most interesting cities on the face of the planet, New Orleans, Louisiana, which is phenomenal. LA, Miami, New York. And, along the way, I met my wife, Monica Newhouse, which is probably the smartest person I know. I'm an engineer. She's an aeronautical engineer. So most of the stuff she's saying I don't understand. She has to explain it to me. And we have two lovely children, and we both live here in Indiana, and our children are in high school right now, and couldn't be happier.
That's awesome. That's an interesting background, and certainly all the places you lived in the United States without actually your parents having immigrated here,
yeah.
Or at least one of them, right? Because you said
both of them. No, man. And it really, what was interesting about the whole dynamic is that right now, immigration is the hot topic, right? My parents never immigrated. My parents just wanted to leave Cuba for a little bit until things got sorted. The problem is that sorted never ended up.
Right.
So my mom was a very accomplished attorney. My dad was an industrialist. And it's so much so that their mindset was vacation, that my dad was going on a ship to Spain. That was his final destination was Spain. It docked in New York. And my father was infamous for getting seasick. So he hated the ship and he got off. He figured, well, I'm going to hang out in New York for a little bit. That was in 1959, 1960.
Yeah.
So, and they've both passed away since, but they never had, at least at the beginning, an image of immigration. They had a feeling that they were all going to go back to Cuba.
It was never their intent to truly leave there, and I understand. That makes a lot of sense, and I want to touch on that a bit more later. But now let's go back to the airport, right? Because you've been in your current role about 12 or 13 years now, and during that time, you've clearly established an esteemed career. You mentioned you established the airport in Hong Kong, Louisiana, other places. And I'm really interested in this because I never appreciated until I met you and learned about your career history that aviation leadership was a career path. Like we know about aviation, like actually flying the planes or pilots or the air traffic controllers and all that, but actually running the airport, running these establishments. I think you're one of the first people I've ever met who has a whole career in that. So I want to know, similar to my career as a patent attorney that I didn't ever really appreciate existed until I got there. How did you learn about this career path? How did you discover it? And what exactly does it mean to be a top executive of an airport? What do you do every day?
To start off, the days are incredibly varied, right? Because we live in an environment that, for lack of a better term, is controlled chaos. But getting back to the meaning of the whole thing, what's actually fantastic is, you said it right now, you're not worried about it. You don't know about it. And that's realistically what we want to do. We want to be the professionals that run everything in the background so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I have no clue about patent attorneys. And I know patents work and, they're protected and rights. Now, I don't understand the mechanics behind it, but I understand you're probably one of the best patents attorney in the state, if not in the country.
Thank you.
So I'm really comfortable if I ever invent something, giving it to you so you can protect it, right? Now, we don't think about it deeply, but you don't have to. The United States in 2019 moved over 1 billion passengers. This is the transportation system of the world. It isn't the future transportation system. It's the existing and future transportation system. Our airport is the 8th busiest cargo airport in the United States. Busier than Dallas-Fort Worth when it comes to cargo. We've got 10.5 million passengers a year. The MSA of Indianapolis is only 2. So you could see the dynamics. Without the aviation system, the United States wouldn't be the United States as we know it. And if you look at great cities through history, the one commonality between all of them is that they were located in transportation areas, either railroad hubs, big rivers, oceans, or in this case, the best airport in North America.
Yeah. Yeah, you started your comments by giving kudos to your team.
Oh, that's
and
all
the
it
people who run the airport day to day. And I really appreciate that because we know that some of the characteristics of phenomenal leaders is they not only rely on their team, but they give credit to their team. And I really like that you started off our whole conversation there. But to be effective, you as the leader of these people and these teams also have to work through your people, right? And I recall reading an article where you quoted a conversation you had and you gave a quote about, and a shout out, just like you did here, appreciation to your team. I want to know, what do you believe has been one of the greatest lessons you've learned about yourself as a leader of people and teams? And what specific skills or strengths do you think you bring to the corporate environment that really allows you to manage teams and people in a well and effective way?
That is an incredibly good question. But one of the things I have to say is that I think Plato said this, if I'm not mistaken. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not in the wrong room. Why we do this and why we're so good is that we have collective wisdom. If you believe that any single leader is the smartest person in the room, that leader probably should be in the room, right? It takes collective wisdom because we all have different life experiences.
Right.
My team is made up, and it's right. It's the right thing to do, and it's also the smart thing to do. My team is composed of different people with different life experiences. The exec team, the whole airport is incredibly different. We don't win awards in spite of it. We win awards because of it. And that's just a byproduct of what we do. But 50% of my executive staff are women. We have everybody that has different life experiences. That's why we have great ideas. We're very innovative. We could pivot rather quickly because you have this composite group that's bringing in ideas, not just one idea like you see in most other places that you have this, like, call it in sort of like uniformity of thought, right? That everybody thinks the same way. So you're going to get the same answer all the time. Whether it's right or wrong, you're going to get the same answer. In our team, everybody's allowed to speak. Yeah, I kind of drill, and it may sound a little bit different, but I kind of drill three things into the team. That the three paths to wisdom: I don't know, I need help, and I made a mistake. And I think everybody in the team basically embraces that and embraces what we're trying to do here. If you look at all the awards we won, those are byproducts, right?
Sure.
But many years ago, I did a study comparing American corporations to Japanese corporations. And it was just a personal study, a personal journey. American companies don't last. They don't last. You've got a couple of them, a handful of them, that are a couple of 100 years old. There's Japanese companies that are millennia old. There's like a contractor that used to build the castles for the shoguns. There's a mochi shop. And over again, what I found out is that their higher purpose was something other than profitability. So our higher purpose is to serve the community, public value in the sense, right? Try to transfer everything. And if you look at what we've done, what this fabulous team has done, the previous year, not last year, or a couple of days into the year, 2024, this team, every dollar spent at the airport, 94% of it was spent here locally. So that takes a big effort from the team. That's over $211 million to the local community. So it's a very hard thing. And I mean, it's just a fabulous team experience, and they understand what they're here for. Their higher purpose is to make your life better.
That's awesome. I would take it from that response. That really is what you feel like one of your greatest accomplishments is as a leader, is being able to assemble this highly functional, collectively working together team that respects one another. I mean, that's half the battle. If you can do that, you won the war. I mean, would you say that that's one of the things you're most proud of?
Absolutely. And something else, they tolerate my idiosyncrasies, which is like amazing. So they kind of like, they haven't kicked me out yet. They haven't kicked me off the island. So I love that team, and they really are, they've got their heart in the right place, and they see it. I know when I got here, it was interesting that we started looking at the term public value. Well, what does that actually mean? It's very simple to put things, especially in the public context, to put things into dollars and cents, profits and loss. That's the easy part. That's really easy. But how do we actually transfer that value back to the community? So the whole team developed a strategic plan in-house for the only purpose of the strategic plan was to figure out what the higher purpose of the organization was. And they figured it out. And I mean, after that, it was off to the races. And you can see all the accolades. We won 8 J.D. Powers. That's 8 of them. I think we won more than BMW, which is like pretty cool. And we were named 14 years the best airport in North America, and I think we're going to win it again. I mean, it's just a fabulous monument to the team, or it's to the team as to what they've been able to build. And not the awards. The awards are just a byproduct, right?
Yeah.
It's what they've been able to do. During COVID, for example, we had enough reserve funds where we didn't release anybody. Everybody was kept on salary. The whole team is still there. And to such a degree that we've tweaked how we hire people to such an incredible degree that our attrition rate, our attrition rate is only 5%. The average in the nation is 11. So people want to come work with us. People want to stay with us once they're there. And it's really a fabulous environment, a fabulous culture inside the organization.
Yeah. So you talk about, the accolades you won recently, or it's not even been recently, over the course of the last decade or so. Can you remember when you first came to the Indianapolis Airport, not as the person leading that organization and that entity, but as a passenger, like most others of us have come to Indianapolis, and the feel of the airport at that time compared to what you and your team have established today? You've already mentioned that, you all have moved over 10 million travelers annually. The Airports Council International World has named you the best airport in North America for 13 and 14 years in a row, in addition to the cleanest airport and the most enjoyable airport, which says a lot. Some of the features they cited were that led to these accolades were the design of the airport's terminal, natural light, clean restrooms, easy access to security gates, etc. And they also mentioned you all having the largest public art gallery in a city that showcases local artists. That's right. That's right. And clearly there's been, to your point, a lot of intentionality around all of those things. I want to know, what are some of the features of our airport that you particularly really appreciate and think makes Indianapolis International Airport stand above the rest?
It's going to sound like a broken record. It's a team.
Yeah.
That is the single number one feature. Think about it. Look, have you been to LaGuardia?
Yeah.
Okay. They spent a ton of money on that place. This fountain that cost $1 gazillion, beautiful, by the way. Your experience will suck in a multi-billion-dollar building. I can't put it any plainer than that, because buildings don't win customer service awards. People do. Buildings win architectural awards. It has nothing to do with the building. Now, you need a building that's not falling apart, right? But you don't need a huge building. You don't need certain space, certain design. You just need your people to make sure that they're taking care of their community members. That's it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Our people are making sure that your checkpoint experience is max 20 minutes. And if we have to, we'll staff part of the checkpoint. Our people are making sure that you have, believe it or not, I can't go into the real details, but you're probably talking about the most secure airport in the United States. Our training is above anybody else. We take it extremely serious. We've brought in people from different countries to train our police, to train our fire. I mean, we've got the best training, and we also mixed it with Disney training. So we have the best of the best. And you could see it. You could feel it. It's palpable. It isn't something that's theoretical. Our construction, you can't see our construction. You know how the artwork started, right? Because COVID caught us in the middle of redoing all the concessions. So we figured that we needed to make sure that we serve our customer well. What better than to hire local artists? We didn't really want them to be the local artists, the starving artist thing, because there are artists. So we brought them in, and they did the demising walls, the separation walls between the terminal and the construction sites. So once they go away, we do another one. We hire more artists. I mean, and the money keeps flowing to the creative class, which is also important to this community. And we're incredibly proud of that program. And I believe we have the largest local art program in any airport in the United States. Now, Tampa won number one, but they brought artists from all over the place, right? And not who cares, but really who cares? You're exporting your economic impact.
Right.
So we're keeping our economic impact here. Our tables that are being made now are being made by Purposeful Design, which is a local company that hires ex-incarcerated folks, and they give them a job. They give them a purpose. We're bringing in furniture from Jasper, Indiana. Most furnitures around the world are made in Canada for airports. And I have nothing against Canadian, love the maple syrup. But we're going to hire local people when we can do it. We're going to keep the money as local as possible.
Yeah, I personally know several local artists who have had their art featured at the airport, and I know for certain it's one of the things they are most proud of. So it not only brings economic impact to those artists, it certainly brings exposure, but it also brings a very strong sense of pride and visibility.
Well, and our team sees it. Look, I'm an engineer, right? I can make life happen. I could runways happen, buildings happen. I can't make life cool. So we need to really protect the creative class to make our place cool, to be able to attract talent, and everything that goes with living in a vibrant economy.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about, we know that there are a lot of societal and legal issues that are affecting how businesses can hire and recruit and advance talent within their workplace. And obviously this has to be important to you because as a leader of an international airport, which venue could never be more diverse, how has your team at the airport worked to make sure our city's first impression to every traveler or every business recruit, right? Because you're the first impression when people come here. How do you make sure that the airport remains warm and welcoming and inclusive? And how important do you believe that experience that one gets at the airport is tied to the economic advantage for the city and the state?
It's super important. It is, right? And our people see it. They have, what they do is incredibly important to the economics of the area. It's not going to stop the economics, but it is going to help the economics if we do it right. For example, that basketball court we put out in Civic Plaza, that caught fire. It was like amazing. The amount of press that got all over the United States and all over the world was actually fantastic. Every time you can say Indianapolis in a positive way, it pays dividends. You attract talent. And we're constantly talking about what is next on our agenda and how do we elevate the game. And our team is fabulous of doing that. Every time you think it can't get any better, it gets a little bit better. Everything from art to basketball courts to bringing in cars for the 500 to making sure our community, we keep our money local, to making sure that everybody is decently treated and well treated at the airport is incredibly important to us. And that translates to how they treat the passengers. Our folks are treated incredibly well. Now, we're very, very, very picky as to who we hire. But once you're hired, you shouldn't have to choose between kids and a career. We pay for childcare. We pay for elderly care. We have a gym. We make sure that you're treated well. If you want to go to school, you go to school. You go to Ivy Tech. I'm the chair of Ivy Tech in Indianapolis. You go to school. You don't have to pay up front. They send us a bill at the end, and you can study whatever you want. There was a gentleman, interestingly enough, that studied culinary. Now, it's a little bit complicated for an organization because organizations usually think in two steps. This is about a 4-step process, right? What does culinary have anything to do with what we do? Actually, it has everything to do because he studied culinary, became a chef, and he left the airport and came to the city to work as a chef. Now, what is the value of that person to the society and to the community at large between just a normal worker and a chef? So he's going to contribute a lot more because he was able to work at the airport and educate himself. And while he was there, he did a fabulous job.
Yeah, that shows how you're building a culture and investing in your people. Those things make all the difference in the world in the experience an employee gets at their employers. If you're not only getting, because you're absolutely right, so many, even the tuition reimbursement programs and such that are available are only available if you can make a case as to how that position or that elevation is going to help the company, not just you personally.
We're here to help the community.
Right.
And also, there's a barrier to entry. You got to pay for it up front. At the airport, you don't.
Right.
They send us a bill at the end. And no matter what they study, it's like, fine, you study this, great. And it creates someone that adds more value to the community, whether they stay with us, and we hope they stay with us, or whether they leave. And if they leave, in the case of the gentleman who's a chef, between a normal worker and a chef, there's a big difference
Right.
in what you're contributing to the community.
Now it's time for a break.
Get caught up on the state's top business news every business day with the Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand podcast. Available now at InsideIndianaBusiness.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back with Mario Rodriguez, Executive Director and CEO of the Indianapolis Airport Authority, on the Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. I want to ask about your experience on your leadership journey. So as a woman of color, I appreciate that my male counterparts often have significantly different experiences in the workplace than I do. And in fact, I've spoken with many men, and diverse men in particular, to date about the challenges they sometimes encounter and have to overcome. So I'd ask you, what has been unique experiences as a diverse man building a national reputation in aviation management and leadership?
You know, it's fascinating. I was having this conversation with my head of HR. If you look at the industry, it's a very white male dominated industry, right? So if you're a woman or if you're a man, a Hispanic like I am, by the way, I think in the history of aviation, of American aviation companies, the airlines, there's only been, I think, 2 women right now and 1 Hispanic. Of all the companies that have gone bankrupt, and so you can see where I'm heading, right? So if you see a Hispanic man, right, or a woman, she or he are probably twice as good as their counterpart because they had to be to get to the same spot. And you can see it over and over again. It's just a more difficult journey, and difficulty is part of your life experiences, and it creates this sort of like a different sort of experience where you could rebound from negativity and do a lot more things quickly.
Resilience.
Exactly. It's different. It really is interesting that to this day, you would think, I've been doing this for 38 years. I won the largest award that you could ever give a CEO, an acting CEO, from our association. I've been on transition team, presidential transition teams. I've been appointed not only by Republicans, by Democrats, Republicans, to different national things. And still there's people that look at me and think I'm the diversity hire. I'm going, Jesus Christ, how many more awards do I need to win? I speak multiple languages. I studied at the University of Miami. I went for courses in Harvard. What more do I need to do to prove myself? And the problem is you can never do that. Right?
That's right.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I've had people come up to me and go, you speak English good. Yeah, I speak English well in 3 other languages, fluently, right? So it's kind of like, it really is a difficult, challenging, but I've taken it as part of my developmental process. And not so much as a negative, but at a minimum as a positive or a neutral,
Yeah. We recognize, and I mean, you just talked about some of them because I fully appreciate. I remember asking one of my colleagues, how many leadership courses, programs, initiatives do you have to graduate from before somebody appreciates you're a leader? Like, how many programs do I need to be through? To your point, how many accolades, how many merits, how many degrees do I have to get or earn for someone who has a bias, because that's clearly reflective of a bias, to consider that maybe I'm actually qualified for this role. And for some people, there will never be enough accolades or merits or whatever. And so we appreciate that there are real challenges in being diverse in predominantly majority business environment. That just comes. I subscribe to the notion, though, that there's always power and purpose when you are the only one or one of few, such as being a diverse business leader in an environment that just isn't that diverse, like Indianapolis. So can you describe some of the benefits or maybe even advantages that you think you've experienced by being able to contribute to the community and the culture of the airport in Indianapolis? And again, what are some of those unique qualities or characteristics or skills besides resilience or in addition to resilience that you think you possess that have empowered you and enabled you to get to this point?
If you step back, and I'll answer it in a hopefully not an unusual way, but it isn't by happenstance that innovation comes from the coasts, right? It isn't because the water is cleansing, right? It's because you have so much diversity of thought. People have different life experiences. If you have the same life experience, that's called social conformity. And I've never seen a socially conforming culture to come up with anything really, really, really innovative. It comes from the nitty-gritty. It comes from different perspective, life experiences, and it comes from blending all of that into an idea. That's why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley, right? That's why it doesn't exist in very, very uniform area. Silicon Valley is one of the most diverse places on the face of the planet.
Right.
New York for the arts, Miami, so on and so forth. You're looking at places not because they're on the coast and not because they're populated to a great extent. It's because all this diversity of thought comes to create something. And when you have all these people thinking in a different way, you're going to get different ideas. And you're going to get clashes of idea. And you're going to get somehow creative chaos, for lack of a better term. That's where it all comes in. That's why we have a large percentage of diversity at the airport. We have, like I said, the executive team is 50% women. It's very diverse, and it's done on purpose. It's not done because it's the right thing to do. Now, it is the right thing to do, but let's leave that to the side. It's the smart thing to do. That's why we're doing much, much, much better than any other airport. It isn't kind of like, hey, someone sprinkled pixie dust on us and we're suddenly the best airport in North America. No. It's because of this team. This team is diverse. This team understands. And this team could serve a very, very diverse community, which we have.
Mario, if it's so clear to you, if that's so clear to you as it is to me, why the pushback? Why is it so hard for that to be just normality?
Fear. When we fear the unknown, we fear people that look different to us. We don't appreciate it. I've lived in places I've lived all over the world, so I have a different idea of what diversity is. I've lived in places where diversity and equity are no longer words because they just are.
Right.
It just is. We're still talking about the same BS over and over again. You would think after breaking the genetic code and understanding that you and I are exactly the same thing and race is a social construct, everybody would say, oh, this is a bunch of BS. Let's just forget about it. And we made our mistakes in the past. Let's just put it behind us and let's just move forward as a society. But we keep going back over and over the same. And it's just weird to me that that scientists have come up and said, no, race doesn't exist. This does not exist at all. This is genetically, we're all exactly the same. And we're still going over the same thing. So it's baffling to me.
Yeah. As a former geneticist, I have preached that because it's factual. It's data. Like we are 99% the exact same. The bits of differences lie in 0.1%, but nonetheless, that is what people focus on. That's what all decisions are based on. Yeah. It is crazy.
Isn't it the weirdest thing? Look, I'm an engineer, right? A dumb engineer, but I'm an engineer nonetheless. But it's like the saying, I don't believe in climate change. For 200 years, we've had meters in the ocean. This is data. You don't have to believe in it.
Right.
You just have to read it and go, okay, yeah,
things are getting warmer.
Things are getting warmer because the data says so. And it's baffling to me that people have a belief over something that's scientific. I guess it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I fully agree. And as a former scientist, that's when things get a little off the rockers because when you stop believing data and facts and things that are provable, then anything's up for anything can happen. So I want to go back to the team concept and how important it is about having a wonderful team. I've recently spoken with HR leaders like Kristen Whedon at IMS and Jackie Gessner at JD Finish Line about about how important it is to ensure their employees, no matter their background, have a good cultural experience during their employment. And you've touched on this. In my experience in corporate environments, often the executive leader ranks, so you and your executive team roll out strategic plans, build initiatives and programs with the intent of continuing to improve the culture and experience of their frontline employees. However, often those programs get kind of lost in middle management. And obviously, that depends on how big your organization is. But I want to know, as a corporate leader at the executive level, when you and your executive team are rolling out initiatives or plans or things that you intend will make your employees' lives better, the culture of the organization better, that they will stay for the long term with your organization and grow. How have you worked to ensure that that actually occurs when you're working through middle management to ensure that the frontline employee, the baggage handler and the ticket counter and the people, the TSA worker and all the other things are truly get the benefit of all of your good intent and plans at the executive level?
We asked them. Now, the organization is a little bit different, right? I'm very, very comfortable in a flat organization. So over the last decade, we've flattened out the organization. I work with 11, call them direct reports, I call them teammates, right? With 11 teammates, which is unheard of in normal corporate America, because usually everybody says if you have more than 5 direct reports, you go crazy. And no, you don't. You get a lot of work, but you don't go crazy. So it's flat. And underneath them, it's flat also. So everybody's connected. Everybody walks into my office. Janitors walk into my office to give me ideas. Some of the greatest ideas. Our problem as human beings is that we think we know what we're doing. Well, we don't. The higher up you go, the less you see of the organization. So someone in terminal services or maintenance probably sees much, much better than we do. And we listen. And I have an organization that really believes in the people that we serve, which include the people that work at the airport. And we believe in listening to them. And, you know, we're imperfect people, so we make mistakes all the time, and they can guide us, and they have given us guidance as to where we're going. Some of these things that we've proposed and we've gotten implemented for our employees, we heard from them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that came up with it. Pet insurance. Who knows about pet insurance? I didn't know about pet insurance, but somebody came up and said, look, right now we're dog daddies and mommies, and we need our pet mommies and daddies, and we need pet insurance. Okay, so we got them pet insurance, and they loved it. And these are ideas that came from the staff itself. And I truly believe in the collective wisdom of the organization, not a hierarchical organization. Anybody could come up to me, or we got an open door policy, and it works pretty well all the time.
I fully appreciate that. Your answer is basically cut out some of that middle management, flatten your organization. Yeah. And I can tell you, even when I worked at Eli Lilly and Company years and years ago, I won a global award where I, as a laboratory research scientist, that's pretty as basic as it gets, had the opportunity, because I won a global award, to speak to the CEO. And you would be surprised at the feedback and the appreciation I got from him of really bringing ideas and thoughts that truly came off the front line. It wasn't managed through 4 executive leaders who don't see what happens day to day. These were my thoughts, my experiences, my feedback based on what I saw on the ground every day. And he explicitly told me that was some of the most valuable feedback, not just because it came directly from me, but often as it goes up levels to and through management, it gets attenuated, it gets a spin on it. You know, there's never any bad news by the time it gets all the way up the food chain, because everybody's worked to make sure. And just that raw feedback, he really, really appreciated. And I think that's awesome.
We do that every day.
Yeah.
That's our organization. You know, we have ideas that come from everywhere, which is where it should come. And that in itself is part of the diversity definition. A plumber has had a different life experience.
Absolutely.
Than a bus driver, than an electrician, than our ops people, than our engineers, than our attorneys. But everybody's opinion is as valuable as everybody else's.
Yeah. I think that in and of itself, that culture where your executive leaders truly believe that everyone's experience and everyone's opinions and feedback is as valuable as the other really changes a complete culture of an organization. I want to talk about some broader issues. So I remember, and you'll remember, back in 2020 with George Floyd's murder and the outcry across the country about the demonstrable injustice that was personified in those moments, and how it resonated and reverberated negative perceptions of the relationship between and mistrust between police and community, particularly in communities of color. And I remember during that time, particularly being a Black woman raising a Black son, how that really weighed on me. And I think so many other people, even if it wasn't your personal experience, you knew people how that it affected. Again, having a Black son, I felt that very personally. And I kind of feel like we're witnessing a similar scenario unfolding as we're seeing in the media some of the national interactions that are occurring between ICE and some of our Latinx and Hispanic communities in particular, and even third parties at this point. And I'm wondering, in situations like this, as I experienced in 2020 and that time with George Floyd, even if it doesn't affect you personally, it certainly is a situation that you can empathize with. And I want to know, for someone like yourself, who is clearly, again, born of immigrants, has a Hispanic background, how do you personally navigate your own authenticity in your corporate workplace and leadership ranks in a way that allows others, your peers, your colleagues, employees, the opportunity to have that same freedom and possibly express their own concerns and fears and real life experiences and still feel valued by your organization?
What's interesting is that there's two of me, right? There's the personal me, which I have my own personal opinion, and I will not share it because it's not relevant. And then there's the person that actually is part of the team at the Indianapolis Airport Authority, right? The person that's part of the team of the Indianapolis Airport, I believe truly, and this kind of crosses over to me, that everybody should be respected.
Yeah.
And everybody should be cared for. And during the George Floyd time, there's a terminology that's leading through love, that you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. And we made sure that people were taken care of, that they were not afraid inside. Or the only thing we control is inside the security fence, right?
Sure.
To make sure that they were respected, and to make sure that their fears were talked about, and to make sure that everybody respected everybody at the airport, regardless of what they think. I may not agree with what you think, but can you work with them? Yes, obviously. And that's all part of the whole beauty. There are people that we may not agree with their opinion at all, but they're as valuable as the people we agree with.
Absolutely.
And to some degree, you could learn from that disagreement and incorporate and figure out what the whole fear is all about. Because it was a pivotal moment in the United States. It actually culminated, decades of that culminated at one point, which is like astonishing at a minimum.
Right.
But we want to make sure at the airport that every single person that works there is respected and it's taken care of, and their opinions are respected and valued. And that's my job, to make sure that the staff walk in there and have no fear of working in that environment. Actually, quite opposite, feel like they're protected and they're listened to and they're taken care of. They're taken care of. We're taking care of our people. And that's the best you could hope of anything in this world.
That's right. That's exactly right. Referring back on your career in aviation, you mentioned your governmental leadership and being involved in presidential transitions and such. And then personally, I've mentioned I know so many of your team members and leadership team who I know are not just phenomenal leaders and executives, but just amazing people. But I want to know how critical, if at all, is inclusive representation at the executive and senior leadership ranks? Not just, so oftentimes when we talk about recruitment, we're talking about, the frontline employees, the rank and file employees, but that doesn't always matriculate into the executive leadership roles. And you've talked a lot about this, but I just want to hear your thoughts
it's
there.
completely pivotal, right? If you think about the whole organization as a living thing, you want that living thing to have as much experience as possible. So in your leadership, which we take the team approach, the airport, 50% of the leaders are women. Why not? Why not have all that experience, that life experience? And minorities, why not have that life experience? Anybody that says, no, we shouldn't, there's something wrong with them. They really haven't looked at the data, right? There was a study done by the Munich Technical University, and it isn't like a fly-by-night. They got 19 Nobel Prize winners, right? And Germans are known for not having a whole heck of a lot of sense of humor. They're pretty stoic about stuff, and they're very data-driven. They studied 141 organizations in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. The more diverse the organization, the better ran. The more creative. And this is not a judgment call. This isn't anything. This is Germans in a technical university doing a study. Now, they didn't correlate whether causation and correlation, whether it was an enlightened organization driving diversity or diversity driving an enlightened organization, driving an enlightened organization. Who cares? The facts are the facts.
Right.
Diversity drives innovation. There's no two ways about it. And if not, innovation would occur everywhere.
Right.
And it doesn't. It occurs in areas that are incredibly diverse, that you have conflict and you have different conflicting ideas and you have social conformity never created innovation.
Yeah. So as we begin to wrap up, I want to know, based on that foundation, because we have plenty of data in the United States that says the same: more diverse executive leaders, more diverse team, better outcome, better revenue, better innovation, all the things. Like, that data's been out there for 10 or 15 years now, but yet there's continued pushback on whether that's actually the case. So I want to know, as Indiana continues to want to compete, want to be top line, with regard to the organizations and the industries and the companies that are coming here, that are investing in our state and in our city of Indianapolis and central Indiana, what can our city leaders, our corporate leaders, and our community leaders continue to do or start doing to make sure that we continue to progress in a way that allows and enables and empowers people of all talents and all gifts to come here, to feel confident that they can be not just valued here, but also sustain a life that they desire here?
Talent builds talent. And the single most important thing is to attract talent. That's it. We have talent available to you in order to do that. I think, if there is one thing that any city leader, any state leader could do, is continue to attract talent into the state. Because the numbers aren't with us. What is the fertility rate in the United States has gone down to 1.7, replacement is 2.4. We're dealing with a talent shortage just by birth rates, right? Why wouldn't you take advantage of talent from around the world and from around the United States? Why wouldn't you take advantage of diverse talent? It's sort of like interesting that people aren't focusing in on what actually drives the economy. People drive the economy. The time that you're making widgets to drive the economy, anyway, people make widgets. You should be driving towards bringing in more and more talent. Actually, we should be looking at the prime example here, Eli Lilly. They bring talent from all over the place because they know that that's their primary driver. People are your primary drivers. And until people really realize that, bricks and mortars don't mean a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
Look, I lived in one of the most creative cities in the world, New Orleans. The infrastructure is breaking down. Are there still people moving into New Orleans? Absolutely. They don't go there because the streets don't have potholes. They go there because it's probably one of the biggest points of confluence for the creative class in the United States, right? You've got artists, painters, musicians. Everything's falling apart. They even come up with a special term for it called elegant decay, you know? But it's a wonderful city, and you can see where I'm going to, right? Talent drives talent. Creative talent in New Orleans drives creative talent.
Right.
We should be thinking that our most important thing is our human capital, and talent will drive talent.
So from that vantage point, what is the importance? Because I certainly agree that we should be recruiting as much diverse talent from around the globe to come here. But what also about the amazing talent that is here?
Oh, yeah.
And what we can do to keep them here? Because to your point, even keeping talent here will attract diverse talent from around the country and around the globe.
It all builds on itself. If we retain the talent and attract talent, more will grow.
Right.
It's sort of like a weird thing, but you want to go where you feel good,
That's right.
where you feel respected, where you see people that have similar life experiences, strangely enough. That's why social conformity is so strong, because people feel comfortable within their sort of area that everybody's about the same, right? We need more people coming in here to solidify what we already have. If not, people will keep leaving. But if you manage to stop the slow tweak of people out of this area, or the small movement of people out of this area, and turn it around and keep talent, it'll be fantastic.
So final question for me, what is on the horizon for the airport? What's your 10-year plan? Is Mario going to stay in Indianapolis, or you have another few cities that you want to hit before you end your career? What are your thoughts for the Indianapolis Airport over the next decade or so?
Over the next decade, like I said, we've been looking at how do we actually maximize the amount of good we're doing in the community. Unlike anybody else, I think we're on the cutting edge. We're creating a bunch of metrics that guide us in that effort. Local spend, workforce development, everything that is necessary. Other than, we run an airport. We understand how aviation works, right? You're going to get a great customer experience, but that's only part of it. The amount of economic power that the airport has. We got $4 billion in assets. I think our economic impact is over $7.5 billion on an annual basis. Right now, the airport is sitting on 535 days of reserve funds. So if no money comes into the airport, we can run the airport for over a year and a half without doing anything at all. And that actually gives you, as a citizen of Central Indiana, comfort that this place is being run very, very well. More nonstops than ever before. We listen to the business community. But in order to keep that up, you need intentionality. And in order for us to continue to talk to businesses and ask them what they need, because to us, a flight into point A is not necessarily a win all the time. It has to be the right win. It has to be, okay, we're serving the business community. Okay, we're serving the leisure market community. And it all comes together with this fabulous team that we've trained. We're training our replacements over the next decade, obviously. And enculturating a group. Now, we're also part of the test to get into the airport, and this is part of the whole team building thing, is to make sure you're empathetic. We could train technical. We can't train empathy. So everybody in the airport, we have sociologists that helps us identify the candidates as they come along. And people with high empathy usually get hired at the airport. People with no empathy usually don't, right? Because you can't grow a team without people that are empathetic and understand what they're trying to do. And the empathy kind of flows into the community. That's really, the answer is simple. More. We want to do more for the community over the next decade, and that's really what we're aiming for. And as for me, I've traveled around the world, and I've seen a lot of things, and I've been excited by a lot of things. One of the things that incredibly impressed me was how kind, genuinely kind Hoosiers are. My wife is very happy here. My kids are very happy here. I think this is probably my last stop in a long journey, and it circles back to all the people. It's very important to me to be in a community that really is super empathetic, is super kind, and everybody here is kind. I'm not here because of the weather, because the weather really sucks. No, trust me, this is probably some of the most horrible stuff I've had to go through, but the people are exceptional, and they're kind, and why wouldn't you want to serve a community that's kind, right?
I just want to end by saying thank you to you. Thanks to your amazing team. You have absolutely made impact well beyond just airport. You are always present. You're always deep. I know that airport crew. I've seen you in so many organizational and community events. And I just want to thank you for being the type of leader that can generate and sustain a culture that attracts talent, recognizes talent, and continues to feed that back into the community as a whole. So thank you very much. And thank you for being on this 54th episode of IBJ's The Freedom Forum.
Angela, it was an honor.
Thank you. Thank you again to Mario Rodriguez, and thanks to you for joining us on this 54th episode of IBJ's The Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. Please come back next month for another conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Central Indiana business community.